my house now!
We're not leaving until you hear what he has to say.
It all began in the small, peaceful town of Brooksville, just outside Atlanta. Alicia Carter, a bright, warm-hearted young woman in her late 20s, had always carried herself with quiet confidence. She worked as a project manager in a tech company and lived with values her parents had taught her: kindness, humility, and respect. Her parents, Thomas and Evelyn Carter, lived modestly, or so everyone believed. They drove an old pickup truck, wore simple clothes, and spoke little of their past. Most people thought they were just middle-class retirees who lived off a small savings fund. When Alicia met Ryan Thompson, the charming, educated son of a wealthy real estate family, she fell in love fast. Ryan's mother, Margaret Thompson, was a definition of old money, a woman obsessed with prestige, designer handbags, and social status. Her friends called her Maggie the Magnificent. But behind closed doors, she was anything but magnificent. When Ryan proposed, Alicia couldn't believe her luck. She thought she was walking into a family built on success and tradition. She had no idea she was stepping into a world where people were judged by the brands they wore, not the kindness they carried. It was a warm Saturday afternoon when the trouble began. Ryan had invited Alicia's parents for lunch at his mother's mansion, a sprawling 20-acre estate just outside the city, surrounded by manicured gardens and marble fountains. Alicia was nervous but excited. She hoped this meeting would unite both families before the wedding. Her parents arrived right on time in their weather blue pickup. Thomas wore his old gray suit, the same one he'd worn to Alicia's graduation, while Evelyn had on a soft yellow dress she'd sewn herself. But the moment they stepped out of that truck, Margaret's expression changed. She looked him up and down with disgust, her lips curling like she'd smelled something foul. "Ryan," she whispered, "these are her parents?" "Yes, Mom," Ryan said proudly. "This is Mr. and Mrs. Carter." Margaret forced a fake smile. "Oh, how quaint." Inside, she made a show of their simplicity, loudly commenting about how refreshing it is to meet people who don't care about luxury. But it didn't stop there. When Evelyn offered her homemade apple pie as a gift, Margaret didn't even touch it. She set it aside on the counter and said, "We usually don't eat store-bought desserts, but thank you." Alicia's heart dropped. Her parents stayed kind and polite through the meal, but the tension was thick. Then, as everyone moved to the living room for coffee, the unthinkable happened. Margaret snapped. She stood up suddenly, eyes blazing. "You know what? I think this has gone on long enough," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "My son deserves better than to marry into this. Get out of my house, you dirty poor people." The room went silent. Alicia gasped. Ryan stood frozen. Her parents said nothing. Evelyn simply took her husband's hand and said quietly, "Let's go, Thomas." They left with dignity, but Alicia's eyes filled with tears. Days turned into weeks. Alicia barely spoke to Margaret after that, but wedding preparations continued, at least until Alicia's parents made an unexpected call. "Sweetheart," Evelyn said on the phone, "your father and I have something to take care of before the wedding. Don't worry about us." Alicia assumed they were embarrassed. She didn't know her parents had begun a quiet investigation into the Thompsons' estate. Meanwhile, Margaret doubled down on her arrogance. She told Ryan's friends that Alicia's family was beneath them, and that she planned to ensure the Carters never embarrass us again. But Ryan, to his credit, stood by Alicia. "If you can't respect her family," he told his mother, "then maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding." Margaret laughed it off. "Oh, please. Without me, there's no wedding. I'm paying for everything." Little did she know that everything wasn't really hers. The day of the wedding arrived, a golden afternoon filled with string music, roses, and gossip. The ceremony was to be held at the Thompson family's mansion, under a white canopy overlooking the gardens. Margaret strutted around in her designer gown, greeting guests like royalty. She made sure everyone saw her jewelry, her diamond earrings glittering in the sun. Then, moments before the ceremony began, a line of black luxury cars rolled up the driveway. Out stepped Thomas and Evelyn Carter. But this time, they didn't look like humble retirees. Thomas wore a tailored navy suit. Evelyn shone in an elegant emerald gown. Behind them were assistants, bodyguards, and a personal chauffeur. The guests turned, whispering. "Who are they?" someone asked. "They look like royalty," another said. Margaret's eyes widened. She stammered. What's going on?" Evelyn smiled calmly. "Oh, Margaret, I believe we haven't had a proper introduction. I'm Evelyn Carter, CEO of Carter Global Holdings." Thomas stepped forward. "And I'm Thomas Carter, founder of Carter Real Estate and Estates. You might be familiar with one of our properties." Margaret blinked. What do you mean?" Thomas gestured around them. "This estate. We own the land your mansion is built on." Gasps erupted. Reporters, guests, and even the wedding photographer froze. "You see," Evelyn continued softly, "we bought this land decades ago as part of a larger investment. We rent it to the Thompsons through our property company." Margaret's knees almost gave way. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Oh, but it is," Thomas said. "We prefer to keep our wealth private. It's amazing what people reveal when they think you're beneath them." Alicia stood, tears streaming down her face, not from pain, but from pride. Ryan looked at her parents-in-law with newfound respect. "You kept all that a secret?" Thomas smiled. "True character doesn't need to announce itself." Margaret tried to save face, forcing an awkward laugh. "Well, this is certainly a surprise. I didn't mean any disrespect." But her voice trembled, and everyone could see through the act. The wedding planner whispered, "Ma'am, the press is already asking questions." Margaret turned pale. Her social circle, the same people she used to impress, were now murmuring about her arrogance and hypocrisy. Ryan and Alicia exchanged vows soon after, surrounded by both families. Yet it wasn't just a union of love. It was a lesson in humility. During the reception, Thomas raised a glass. To kindness, to respect, and to remembering that wealth can build a house, but character builds a home. The crowd applauded. Even Margaret couldn't hold back her tears. For the first time, she saw that real wealth wasn't measured in money, but in dignity. Months later, Margaret quietly sold her jewelry collection and moved into a smaller home. She began volunteering at a local community center, helping low-income families find housing. One day, Alicia visited her. Margaret handed her a small photo album. Inside were pictures of the wedding and a handwritten note that read, "I judge your family by what I could see, not who they were. I was blind by pride. Thank you for showing me what true class looks like." Alicia smiled gently. "It's never too late to learn, Margaret." The two women hugged, this time without status, without judgment, just humanity. When arrogance meets hidden truth, respect finds its price. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They may be the ones who own the ground you stand on. Would you forgive someone who disrespected your family before knowing your true worth? Drop a comment below. Make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories.